like there's a whole, one of my favorite parts of the book is you have Erin and her client talking about really big questions that don't have easy answers. Let's see if I can find it in my notes. It's an ethical life and death decision.
So when Erin is talking to her about a particular, that she can't allow, Erin can't tell her to go up on the stand and perjure herself. Is that the one that you're talking about?
Right, and it's bigger than that, like, because I think you're talking about, you know, what's appropriate for the case and what her role and her moral compass is as an attorney. But she also has this really, you know, it's a very deep ethical discussion about whether or not you're willing to risk someone that you love, their life, to speak against someone who has exploited and abused innocence, right? And so if you could stop abuse of innocent people, but by doing so, you put your loved one at risk, would you do it? And it's this massively unanswerable question, but they have a really sincere conversation about it.
They do, and it's because the client is facing that situation,
right,
that very situation, and Erin, through, you know, something that happens in the story, has avoided having to face that situation because the threat to the person that she loved has been removed. But she's still trying to advise the client, and knowing that in her own mind, if she had to make that decision, the decision that she's telling the client to make, she doesn't know that she could make that decision the way she wants her client to make it. That it's such a tough decision as to whether or not you risk the life of someone you love to do the right thing.
Yeah. These are big questions for a legal thriller, Robyn. Right. I mean, I think you honestly, I think you've done that a couple of times. There's this wonderful conversation at a sporting event between Erin and her sister-in-law, and they're talking about, you know, being a good person and relationship and cherishing life and whether, you know, what it takes to really appreciate life. And I think you had some very deep conversations where you peel back who the characters are and the specifics of the story and reveal a bigger ethical, moral, humanity question.
Thank you. I really do want to write more than legal thrillers, not in the sense that I want to branch out and do something different, but I want my books to be more than a legal thriller, if that makes sense. I want to tackle issues that the characters face in real life. So for example, you know, it's not a spoiler to say in Survivor's Guilt, Erin's mom, who she's incredibly close with, Peg McCabe, is diagnosed with breast cancer. And that's part of the story. It doesn't necessarily move the plot of the legal thriller along, but it's part of Erin's life, and it leads to that conversation that you're talking about with her sister-in-law on the sidelines about, you know, the fragility of life and you know, why we do things, and the fact that we convince ourselves that we're here forever when all of us aren't. And so, you know, in that sense, even though it doesn't necessarily add to the thriller part of the story, it adds to the characters. And I want my characters to be three-dimensional human beings with a lot of things that impact their lives and may impact decisions that do play into the role or into what is part of the legal thriller. So that you have this view of them as a three-dimensional person, somebody that you would go out and have a glass of wine with Erin McCabe because you feel like you know her and you know something about her life.
Yes. I loved that about it. I thought she was very three-dimensional. I thought she was very likable. And I'm glad you brought up her mom, because I think some of the lines that I underlined 3 times, again, these sort of like morality, ethical, life lesson kind of dialogue happened between Aaron and Peg. Some of it has to do with Peg encouraging Aaron to be the best person she can be, right? And some of it's relationship advice, which we expect from a mother-daughter conversation. But some of it is also about overcoming her own self-doubt.
Yes.
Encouraging her to embrace her life as a woman.
Yes.
And I felt like those were very, I felt like I was eavesdropping on a real conversation. So where did that come from?
As all authors say, this is a work of fiction, any resemblance to any character is real, or, it's not, I will say that in the instance of Peg McCabe is an homage to my mom. She truly is. My mom passed in December of 2020, but she was there while I wrote By Way of Sorrow and when I wrote Survivor's Guilt. And my mom's not Peg McCabe, but there are so many things about Peg McCabe that come from my mom, in the sense that when I came out to my mom in 2007, 2008, you have to understand my mom was in her 80s at that point in time. Good Irish Catholic woman, went to church every day, went to mass every day.
Wow.
And she had a real tough time understanding me, and who I was and why I was coming out the way I was. And yet, before I started living full-time as Robyn, we had dinner together, and she said to me, I don't like this. I don't want this. I wish you wouldn't do this, but you're my child and I'm always going to love you. And she did. And we had the best relationship after I transitioned. I mean, my mom had a wicked sense of humor. She was with it till the day she died. I mean, she had her wits. I mean, and so Peg, so much of Peg is my mom. Some of the lines directly from my mother. So I just love writing Peg. I'm working on book 3 now, and obviously my mom is gone, but Peg lives on, and as long as Peg lives on, my mom lives on. So it's wonderful.
Oh, I love that.